So, I admit that I haven't been doing fan art or screen cap redraws as much as I used to, and I think that's just coming with time that I want to draw my OCs more often and make new characters that exist from my hands, you know? But every so often I go back to a piece of media, or I watch something and I really enjoy it, and I want to draw one of the characters that really inspire me. Like this guy right here. He's from FLCL, and his name is Canti. I decided to give it a rewatch, and, well, the last time I saw it I was about 4 years old, so it was like watching it for the first time again, I'm not gonna lie. But if there's one thing that I definitely have in common with my 4-year-old self is that I still like the same character. I think one of my favorite aspects of him is that he didn't talk a lot, and a lot of his emotions were still shown, even though he couldn't express them through the words. Like how at one point the back of his head kind of gets like blown off, and he's embarrassed by that, so he covers the back of his head with a box to kind of simulate the box that he originally had there. So I thought that that was like a funny aspect of the character. Or like how he's really polite to people and, you know, kind of like takes up the house chores slash being the maid of his house, which I thought that was like a different aspect compared to the rest of the characters in the show. He was definitely a different dynamic, and I kind of liked that when I was younger, and I like that now. One of the things that I remember telling myself when I was younger is I really like how the animation was, and I still say that now, like, arguably, this is one of the best animated, like, mini animes. I'd like to call it a mini anime, because it was only 6 episodes, that I've seen in an extremely long time. I'm talking about, you could literally tell somebody this was only made a few years ago, and I honestly think people would believe it, because of how fluid the animation is, and just how modern the art style looks. It's kind of crazy, actually. I think all the characters in the show have their little nuances, and, you know, they're the way they are due to the story, blah blah blah, etc. But I think just Canti was a nice little, almost like a comedic relief in between all of that, but at the same time was very crucial to the story, even when he wasn't comedic relief, because he is also like a fighting robot. So there's also that dynamic in there. Other characters, although I like them, they don't mesh with me, I guess. I think we all do that though, right? Like, we pick a certain character from a show, or like 1 or 2 or 3 of them or something like that we really like, and that we kind of not obsess over, but like get attached to almost. Like, we kind of are like, hey, this character, I like them because of A, B, C, and D, while the other characters, I really don't give a shit. I think that that's actually a common phenomenon between a lot of people. And for me growing up, what it was is whenever I did find a character like that I was like, wow, I really like the way they look, or the way they are, or their role in the show, I would want to draw them. And I didn't always have the skill to do that, or if I did, it wasn't until I was way older. So now that I am older, I finally have the opportunity to go ahead and look up a lot of these characters and, you know, finally draw them the way I want to. And I think that that's a cool thing that we can do, not only as just, you know, somebody who enjoys media, but as artists. Sometimes we find a character that we really like, or we attach to, or, you know, just makes us feel nice, and we want to draw them. And that's why I always think fan art is such a good idea. Number one, fan art is just a great way to fill up your sketchbook. Sometimes some people actually have a lot of struggles with creating OCs, or making up a character in general, and then filling out the sketchbook with it, and it's a long and hefty process sometimes. Like creating an OC with a backstory, or how you want them to look, and there's so many different options that sometimes it can get overwhelming. So finding something like fan art from a show that you like, or a character that really speaks to you, and just putting them down on the paper really helps you, you know, kind of not only gather thoughts that you need to, but help you feel like you're getting through your sketchbook, and it doesn't feel like you're straining yourself, you know? Sometimes just drawing a character that you really like, whether it's your own or other characters that already exist in your sketchbook, just really helps to, you know, make you feel like you're doing something. And I always like to feel like that. I like to feel that I'm doing something and that I'm putting my work towards something. So I really think that that's always a good option to have on hand. The second thing about fan art is that sometimes it's just a good way to practice. Sometimes you don't know how to draw a certain pose or an angle, and you see these characters who are drawn in different ways in their screen caps or in other people's fan art, and you see how they're done, and then you practice from those things. Fan art can be a great tool to kind of like be that introductory to people learning how to draw, because of the sole fact that you're so overwhelmed, or not overwhelmed, you're so enticed, there we go, I don't know why I use overwhelm, but by a character that you really like, that you want to learn how to draw them. And I think that that's like something that's really cool that we have the ability to do, is that we see a character we like and we tell ourselves, oh, we got to figure out a way how to draw it, which is pretty cool actually. And then one thing that I also really like about fan art is that it just really helps me step out of my comfort zone. Like, I would never think to draw a robotic character on my own accord, you know? Like, I like drawing usually around the same thing, which is just big beefy boys, which I ain't got no problem with that, you know? I ain't got no problem with drawing that. But sometimes it's nice to step out of that boundary and then kind of see not only where your skill can take you, but how you would do certain characters in your style. So like, we see that although I draw these characters, or like this character Canti in specific, very close to the screen caps that I have, the one in the middle is the one that I made up, the pose that I made up on my own, and I took advantage of how the sketchbook was laid out and almost used it as a way to mirror out the pose. So when I drew it, it would be a little bit more even. But comparing the pose that I would do versus the two poses on the right and the left, which are screen caps, it's kind of different. But I also kind of took into account how the character is, and I kind of put him in a pose that I think that not only he would definitely do, but it would kind of suit him to do. And I think that's one of like the most awesome aspects of fan art, is that you taking this character and then making them look a certain way or do a certain pose or anything really helps kind of like open up your mind to a lot of different ways to draw and create these awesome personalized pieces of art. Because like I said, even though it's a character that exists, you're creating this idea or this form of this character, and it's cool because it's just you did that. You were the one who created that pose and put them in a certain lighting or put them in a certain angle that hasn't been seen before, and it's because of your want to go ahead and do something like that with a character that even exists. And I think that that's one of the most fantastic aspects of art that I can even think of, and hopefully I get to do it even more often. I'm trying to get back into either shows that I used to watch or watch some new shows to kind of help me not only fill out my sketchbook like I stated earlier, but help me kind of discover new ways to make even more characters. Because I think it's always good to keep practicing and keep learning. When it comes to art, I don't think there's ever a time where somebody's like, yeah, I got the entirety of art down. This is it right here. I don't think so, unless you're somebody who is like practiced for years and years and years and years on end, and you just have that skill set from all that practicing or from working on the subject or anything like that. It's just, there's so much to art. There's the character building, there's the perspectives, there's foreshortening, there's like a whole bunch of different categories of art that exist. You could do real life, you could do cartoons, you could do caricatures. There's so much of it that is in that little world of art that honestly you can learn forever, and it never ends. And I think that that's something that's cool. It's also overwhelming because someone like me, I want to do a lot of different art, but I think I have to take it slow and just learn the basics first, or more than the basics now, because I've gone past the basic stage, I'd like to think. But learning things on a certain level and then continuing up the ranks will eventually get me there. Like, I'm still pretty much a noob at gouache, but I'm trying, and I think I've gotten markers down pat, but I still want to practice color pencil, but I like painting, but it's like a whole bunch of different stuff. But I think a lot of the time when it comes to that, a good way to go ahead and enter yourself into a lot of those different worlds of art is fan art, because you are just doing a character you like and then practicing in that way, and it's honestly a cool thing. And I think one of the coolest things, I've probably said like cool like 1,000 times in this video, I'm so sorry, but genuinely an awesome thing is that a follower slash watcher of mine actually made fan art of my characters, and like my heart exploded. I was like, really? I was like, I can't believe it, somebody did fan art of my characters. And I thought that that was so cool, because I was like, yo, I was always the kid who drew fan art of other characters, and I always wanted to be the person that like would help inspire other people, and like if they liked my art, that they would want to draw the characters that I made and all that kind of stuff. So like to see that actually come to life and like have that happen, I was like the happiest person in the entire universe. And truly, like I thank the person who did this fan art 100%. Their art is going to be up there with their art to show you that the fan art that they did. And I was like, this is like crazy how the video plan was to speak about fan art this week and like how much I like it, and then for that to happen too, I was like, this is awesome. This is something that I truly like, I love to do, and I'm so glad that I could inspire like even just one person. Like my heart is filled with joy and happiness, like, and that doesn't happen often. That doesn't happen often, where my heart is just truly filled with a whole bunch of glee. So that made like my year, possibly my next 10 years. I don't know, but it's just awesome to see that not only do I speak about these kind of things like fan art and how beneficial they are, but to actually receive fan art of characters that I've done is like the coolest thing in the entire universe. And I'm genuinely so happy that I could do that. This is something that I 1,000,000,000% enjoy doing, and I've always loved to draw, and I've always liked sharing my art with other people, and I'm so glad that I could even put it out there in general, because that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm so happy that I'm doing this. I really am. Okay, now that I'm done gushing about all of that, this is basically the finished version of everything. I enjoyed drawing Canti because, like I said, I enjoyed drawing fan art, and I really do want to get into it more often. This is something that I think everybody should do, and that is totally worth it, because there's just too many benefits to not do something like fan art. Whether it's a character that you liked 20 years ago, if you are that old, or if it's a character that you like a week ago, I really think it's always worth putting in the time and effort for something that you really enjoy, and that, you know, you could truly find something beneficial out of it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.